Great marketers recognize that they are creating marketing and building a brand with people who will never buy from them. We have our sources of influence that we pay attention to. If you know those things about your audience beforehand, you have a superpower. You have such a competitive advantage over everyone else.
From the co-founder of Moz to CEO of SparkToro, meet Rand Fishkin, who is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and marketers find the people and publications that influence their audience.
Imagine that you wanted to know what groceries were most sold in grocery stores in Washington State. Would you survey people around Washington? No one can possibly remember that. So what you do is you go and look at the receipts. I tend to tell people when they have to choose marketing channels and tactics, choose the ones at the intersection of three things. One, an area where you have passion and interest. Second is somewhere you can provide unique value. And then the third thing is,
what ultimately drives you?
I think I'm not supposed to say guilt and revenge. So my answer would be,
let's just start maybe a little bit, tell us about SparkToro and how did that company come about and kind of your founder and entrepreneur journey?
Sure. So a lot of people might know me from my previous company, Moz, which was in the SEO software space. Ran that company for 17 years and left in 2018 to found SparkToro the very next day. And SparkToro is in audience research software where we help people understand the behaviors and demographics of any describable online audience. So if you are starting a company and you want to know, hey, where do graphic designers in Ohio hang out on the internet, SparkToro can tell you that. And if you're curious about where sales managers for SaaS businesses, enterprise SaaS businesses on the East Coast are, SparkToro can tell you that too. And if you want to know what plumbers in London are up to, SparkToro can even tell you that.
Interesting. What was the basis when you started it? What problem were you setting out to solve?
My big frustration here is that if you wanted to know the sources of influence of any given audience, right? Let's say, I don't know, interior designers in Los Angeles, you historically would have to basically hire a market research firm to run surveys and do interviews, oftentimes costs exceeding $100,000 just to get one report that would tell you, okay, these are the YouTube channels that are popular with interior designers, and these are the subreddits that they subscribe to. Here's the websites they visit the most. These are the newsletters they subscribe to. Here's news sources that they pay attention to, websites they visit, keywords they search for in Google, all that kind of stuff. That information, in my opinion, should be accessible to everyone. You should not need a six-figure budget and a 6-month timeline to get that. And also, I don't know how much you guys have done with surveys, but like, okay, here's my favorite example is, imagine that you wanted to know what groceries were most sold in grocery stores in Washington State. Would you survey people around Washington and say, hey, what groceries do you buy? Like how many boxes of cereal and which brands? No, you would never do that because no one can possibly remember that. You know, even if they remember their last grocery run quite well, which no one does.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to tell you for the last 2 years. So what you do is you go and look at the receipts. Like you go to the stores and you're like, okay, which products were purchased? That's what people are buying. And SparkToro, we felt that same way. We thought surveys were just a terrible methodology to get at, hey, what newsletters do you subscribe to, or what conferences do you go to, or what YouTube channels do you subscribe to? Go get the receipts. And the receipts are clickstream panel data. So this is essentially, you know, our data provider, which is Datos. They were recently bought by SEMrush, but still provide us data. And they basically have like 10 million plus devices in the US, and they see every URL that those devices visit. And then we basically do magic to kind of match up the profiles that, you know, the audience that you search for and the profiles that match those, and then say, okay, interior designers visit, you know, the Archinect Sessions podcast 712% more than average. Like we're going to show that at the top of the list of podcasts that have high affinity with this audience. And then we'll provide details about subscribers, et cetera, et cetera.
Interesting.
That methodology to us just seemed so much smarter. And we wanted to make it something that anyone could get even for free. So there's a popular free account. I think I want to say we have more than 200,000 people who use the free version of SparkToro now.
Oh, wow.
If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, be sure to click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell. It lets YouTube know you want to support the This Is the Way podcast, and it helps spread the word, and we greatly appreciate it. And now, back to the episode.
So does that mean that a lot of these people who used to sell these things for several $1,000s hate you? Because, right, they would have packaged this up, marketing companies in some way.
I don't think they even notice us, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still very small. So SparkToro is only 3 people.
Yeah.
We have a very unique and weird structure. Revenue is north of $1 million, but not quite 2 million. We are a year, and we have maybe 1,500-ish paying subscribers. So we're really small, compared to these market research firms that, with 15 customers, right, they're doing our revenue, whatever. We are really about democratizing that information and making it available to everyone. But I don't think that's their mission at all, right? They're taking clients out to like $1,000 lunches and buying them fancy whiskey bottles every Christmas.
Well, then they might be going behind the scenes and using SparkToro to get the data.
I don't want to name names. I'm not here to out my customers, but there are a few market research firms who have subscriptions to SparkToro, and I always squint and wonder, are you just repackaging this and selling it to people for way more?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, then I'm curious. So today, with these tools within the LLMs, when it comes to deep research, or like, are they accessing similar information? I mean, I guess the key thing, maybe answer my own question, is you are partnering with somebody whose literal job is data. And sometimes the issue is trying to get to the accurate data, which you increase your chances of, versus an LLM tool where people are just like, good luck. We don't know where it came from, but here it is. Is that about right?
I think lots of people do audience research like tasks with LLMs.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I would strongly recommend against that. LLMs are great for a bunch of things, but just remember it's a model that uses like a giant corpus of words, right?
Yeah.
Like words that come after other words. And then they use predictive modeling to show you words that frequently come after those other words in the corpus that they've got. And so, for example, if hey, tell me what podcasts are popular with interior designers in Los Angeles, ChatGPT will absolutely give you an answer. It will probably not be terrible, but it won't be based on data.
Yeah.
It will be based on how many times those podcasts are mentioned on the corpus of the web, like the information that they've crawled. Does that correlate with which ones are more and less popular? Maybe. You have no way to know.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Okay.
Like it's not real data. It would be like asking ChatGPT, how many people visited my website last month, instead of looking at your analytics.
Yeah.
Like you should look at your analytics, right? ChatGPT might make a guess. I mean, they will make a guess.
It will make a guess. Yeah.
It might be 10 times more than what is true. It might be 1/10 of what is true. It might be only 30 or 40% off of what is true.
Yeah.
But it's a guess based on like they see language frequently around these things, and then they're sort of doing an implied modeling based on that corpus. My suggestion would be, if you want real data, you should go get real data sources.
Right.
This is one of them.
Is there a limit on the type of data that you guys have access to? And like when people are using your tool, is that something?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Unlike ChatGPT, who's going to be like, still give you information. Are you guys going to be like, that's not our,
Right. So like we do not currently collect data about mobile app usage. Mm-hmm. So if you said, hey, I want to know which mobile apps, like is whatever, the Yelp app popular or the Alaska Airlines app popular with my particular audience, we don't have mobile app data. Our clickstream data provider only gets URLs that are visited in browsers. So mobile and desktop, but only in browsers. We don't, this is an odd one, but we do technically have or could have data about some demographic information that is interesting to people. Like many marketers historically, for example, find race and religion data very useful. Mm. But because we're worried about the abuse potential of those things, or sexuality, gender identity, that kind of stuff. Like we don't collect those things.
Okay.
Or rather, we see that because people put them in their social profiles, which is where we get demographic data. We see it, but we throw it away, right? So we will not tell you where to reach, whatever, Black Americans in Montana. Like that. You can search for people in Montana. We'll tell you all about them. But once you start trying to append, racial data, religion data, identity, those kinds of identity stuff, we don't do it.
Got it. There's probably some Black people listening to this who are like, we're not in Montana, dude. I'm channeling my buddy who would be like, yeah. He goes, what are you talking about?
No. I have some Black friends who have visited Montana, but I don't know. I don't think I have a Black friend who lives in Montana. It's a very white place. I do know, oddly enough, I have a friend who's Jewish whose family lives in Montana. And I was like, is there a synagogue there? And they're like, yes, one.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Go figure.
Yeah. What type of businesses will be kind of ideal for using your data?
Oh, gosh. You know what is kind of weird, Art? I would say we can serve B2B, B2C, big, small. You haven't even started your business yet, right? Like you don't even need to have a website. You can search SparkToro for an audience that you potentially want to reach, and then figure out whether they're a good match for you. Instead, the way I think of it is, if you have the problem that SparkToro solves, then it's a good match, right? So, and the problem tends to be, I need to know where to reach my audience so that I can earn my first 100 customers, or grow from 1,000 customers to 10,000, or spend less money with Google and Facebook and put it towards, marketing tactics that might be have better efficacy for the cost. Or if you're looking to broaden your marketing, right? You're like, hey, I've exhausted the possibility with my ad spend. I need to find some new channels for growth. SparkToro is great for that.
Yeah. So that's a good, not a pivot, but to piggyback on that. If somebody was kind of in that early stage of a business, it's no longer a concept on paper, they have something that they're trying to actually sell. What will be your advice? Like, what should they do to be the most effective in both operation perspective and cost perspective?
Yeah, you mean as far as their marketing goes?
Yeah, as far as their marketing goes and leveraging SparkToro, what should they do?
Because let's just face it, most people skip the research phase when they're building a business. Unfortunately, we've been guilty of it too. It's like you just have an idea, you feel good about it, you are the research team, or the one or two people you asked who might have said yes to, that's a good idea, even though maybe it wasn't. So how you would protect themselves, maybe if SparkToro is the way to do that, to at least dive a little bit deeper and kind of understand and know which fishing holes to go to try to test those concepts a little bit more.
Yeah. I've been guilty of it too. Like even as someone who deeply cares about marketing research and gathering data about audiences, I have started projects and companies without doing my full research. So I don't want to suggest that it can't work. It potentially can, but early on in your company's life, as early as you can, I would recommend gaining a deep understanding of your audience and your customer. And those are two different things. So I think this is one of the biggest, if there was like a hidden secret to marketing, like that great marketers know, great marketers recognize that they are creating marketing and building a brand with people who will never buy from them. And many marketers who struggle and brands who struggle and early stage founders who struggle don't recognize how important it is to build their brand with what I'd call sources of influence, right? Like the people and publications of all kinds that influence your audience, even though your customers are a small segment of that audience. So like, we all know this intuitively. If you, I don't know, if you start a new candy bar company tomorrow, and you might say, well, it's for everyone. Everyone likes candy. Okay,
I mean,
terrible, like absolutely terrible. Entrepreneurship 101
yeah,
should they should have like a door-to-door guy who comes up. He's like, no, I'm sorry. You don't get to start a company. You don't understand how it works. Like,
yeah,
you can't make things for everyone. You have to have a position in the market, right? Where you say, amongst all the candy bars, we are whatever, high quality organic chocolate that's like luxury, and we're for this very tiny slice of buyers right at the top of the market. Or we make a sour gummy that is so sour, it blows away on the sourmometer meter.
right.
I don't know what tools candy makers use to measure the sourness of candy, right? But that they're like, we're going to win. We're going to be the 10 out of 10 sourest candy you've ever had. Whatever your particular position is, right? You are serving a specific audience. And that always means that there's there are places where they are influenced, right? Things that they pay attention to around the worlds that they care about. So, the three of us, we have probably a bunch of similar newsletters and websites that we visit as people who are creators and like care about marketing and do entrepreneurial things, right? And we're sort of, tech adjacent. We all have fancy microphones and nice camera setups. Like our world, we have our sources of influence that we pay attention to. And if I say like, oh, Michael Madsen at Tech-Dirt, you guys would be like, oh yeah, I think I've seen his stuff. Or maybe you subscribe to him, or maybe you visit him every day or listen to his podcast. I don't know. But there are like particular sources of influence. And if you know those things about your audience beforehand, you have a superpower. You have such a competitive advantage over everyone else, because it is unfortunately rare that people understand where their audience is influenced.
Right.
What do you do with that? That's a whole other thing. I mean, we can talk about that too, but like once you can design smart messaging, you can design better products, you can position those products, you can craft headlines and landing pages and resonant advertising. You can be in those places where your audience pays attention. You can figure out which connections you need to make to get into those places. You can do PR, you can do advertising, whatever it is that you do. But without that knowledge, it's sort of like saying, okay, go, find me a deer in the forest. Okay. Which are deer in this forest? I don't know where they are.
I mean, that example is funny because I think of LinkedIn sometimes that way when they say, well, you got to identify your ICP. Okay. Who is that on LinkedIn? I don't know. like it's a difficult. Michael and I struggled early on. We're like, what are they talking about? Who is our ICP? I don't know.
I do think, oddly enough, I rarely say this, but I think AI is kind of nice for this. If you describe to an AI, a chatbot of any kind, and you say, hey, here's my sort of product that I'm making and the positioning that I want to have, and I'm making the sourest gummy, or I'm making the super luxury chocolate bar, whatever it is. Tell me more about like who my ideal customers might be. AI is a good brainstorming starting place. Like it might give you a bunch of things and you go through and are like, no, that's not who I want to go after. But even knowing that those are not the people, you can reply and say like, oh, I don't like any of these. I think, can you brainstorm some more ideas until you find that one, right? And if it says, for example, like, oh, we think that luxury chocolate bar market, it's really going to be foodies in coastal cities who tend to be, high income earners, are often in dual income relationships or small families. They're probably between these ages, and you're like, yeah, that sounds right. It's pretty good at that because a lot of ICP work, initial brainstorming of ICP work is stereotyping.
Yeah, right.
and AI is a stereotype machine. Like that's all it does, right? It just stereotypes. So can be useful for that.
So I'm curious in that scenario though, because it is a bit of chicken and an egg, because understanding some of the ICP information would then help somebody ask better questions in using SparkToro. Or the other route is you start in SparkToro and then it starts to give you some details and then you might go the other route. So do you think one's better than the other?
I think both are equally valid. I think both are totally fine, right? If you have a pretty good description of your customer set and audience already, you can just go to SparkToro and try it out. If you need to brainstorm it, you could start with AI.
Yeah.
And then, you know what the other thing is, like, Art, to your point around people poking around LinkedIn, I don't think that's a terrible strategy either, especially if you're B2B and you're thinking to yourself, gosh, who is my ideal customer? And maybe you have, hopefully, before you start your B2B company, you have at least a handful of people in your personal network who you think are perfect customers for your product, where you're like, oh man, you know, like Art, let's say you and I are making a, I don't know, B2B software company for podcasters. And we're like, Michael's going to love this. Like, you know, too bad Riverside, we're about to put you out of business with this thing that Michael's going to love so much more than like any other, you know, podcasting product he's ever used. And so we have some people like in our head, and then we'll go to their LinkedIn profile and then we'll look for commonalities. So it'll be like, gosh, you know, Michael and like that guy Bob that I was talking to, and Sandra's podcast and like Melissa's podcast, you know what they all have in common is they put these things in their bio or profile, or they use this as their job title, or they say this about their experience. Great. Now you have some commonalities. Now you can start to identify more, right? Now you can go to LinkedIn search and look for all the people who contain that and figure out which ones are matches for you and start to build a list. You can go to SparkToro and you can say, hey, my audience is these people with these types of job roles and, you know, these kinds of decision makers. Awesome. Like this brainstorming process is really valuable. And if you go through the research, I promise you will get better results.
So I'm curious in thinking about LinkedIn, for example, and knowing that they have their navigator when it comes to actually analyzing their specific users, and there's different tools out there for all of the platforms. Does yours go as far as outputting particular, you know, names that fit the criteria? Nothing like that. That's what I think.
No. So no personally identifiable information.
Yep. Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say no. If you go to the list of social accounts that people follow, like for example, if you search for digital marketers, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but very frequently I'll be like in the top few, right? Just because lots of people in marketing world have followed me for a long time.
Okay.
And so if you see my name on the list, you'll also see like, okay, there's a link to Rand's LinkedIn and his Twitter and his Blue Sky and his Threads and whatever. But you will not see that for the audience, right? So we intentionally hide the people whose profiles we've matched up. So it might be your profile. You know, if you search for podcasters in Idaho, like we might find your profile, Michael, and then but we will not show that to a searcher.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So then a couple of like specific examples here, and shoot me down if you're like, nah, poor use case for that. But so in a scenario, if I was trying to research around individuals, like for let's say one of the businesses I have is around marketing for short-term rentals. And so if I was trying to look at it and be like, okay, where are these people hanging out, like in advance of getting them before they go to Airbnb or something like that, because direct booking is a big aspect of this. Is that something where there's a use case, or is that reaching a little bit?
No, yeah, you could certainly, you could go to SparkToro and you could basically, we have a feature where you can like describe your audience using natural language.
Yeah.
And you could say, hey, I'm looking for people who run, short-term rentals and they own properties like this in these geographies. And they potentially, do they use property management? Whatever you want to type in there. And then SparkToro will tell you, hey, a lot of them subscribe to these YouTube channels. And you might say, perfect. Like, I know how to get to be a guest on those YouTube channels. Or, oh, sweet. A few of those YouTube channels take direct ads. And I am going to buy, a 30-second spot on that YouTube ad to, that doesn't even use YouTube's like advertising system. Or you could just plug it into your Google Ads account and be like, hey, I want to advertise on this YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay, interesting. All right, then what about this other scenario, which again also fits my life right now? I'm looking for a business to acquire. And as I search for businesses to acquire, I guess the question there is probably would be similar around fishing holes of where are individuals who are looking to sell their business typically.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, I helped someone with a search exactly like that last year, and found some really interesting things. Like there's brokerages for like buying and selling certain kinds of businesses that are popular with people. There's like resources that, frequently come up, certain websites that like appeal to them, newsletters, all that kind of stuff. So conceivably you could go into those spaces and try and build, you might not want to do any marketing or advertising at all. You might just be looking in those places to try and browse for people who are listing their businesses or participating in those communities so that you could reach out.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. And it would probably be similar to around business consulting. If people were looking at that, it, again, sounds like just using natural language, you'd be able to hopefully sort out and figure out where, again, more of these people. Interesting.
I'll give you one thing to make sure that people know that I am not like just trying to sell you on SparkToro. It is terrible for a bunch of things. Like, for example, SparkToro cannot help you find people who are looking to buy a new house. And the reason it can't is because people who are looking to buy a new house don't have any unique behavior.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like they are everyone. Similar, like in our candy example, it would struggle if you said, if you're like the Mars Corporation and you're trying to sell Snickers. Well, every human being on the planet, we're talking about way too broad of an audience.
Yeah.
But SparkToro would be great for, those high-end buyers of like a luxury candy bar, that contains some fancy chocolate or whatever. Also be good if you were trying to target real estate agents, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's good at those things because those people have particular subtleties to them that makes them identifiable. Whereas people who might be interested in someday owning a home is like, okay, well, I guess, I don't know, according to all the reports I read in the US, apparently if you're in Gen Z, you no longer care about home ownership because you think it's impossible. But, like everybody else, right?
And people, I guess, don't publicize their intent to buy a house.
Exactly. Yes, Art, you've picked up on it precisely, right? Like they might visit a Redfin or a Zillow, and SparkToro could tell you about the audience that visits Redfin or Zillow. But many of those people, as we all know, are like, they're going there to see, hey, is my house worth more than it used to be? Or I'm visiting whatever.
Yeah.
I'm visiting some cute neighborhood. Yeah. I'm like walking around Palm Springs and I see a beautiful house and I'm like, I wonder how much. Okay, honey, how much do you think that house goes for? Right? Like, yeah. So
I'm guilty of that. So yes.
Me too. I can't resist. I'm always so curious when I see a weird house. I go, how much do you think that's worth?
Yeah, always.
I'm curious here too, just in the future of where you see SparkToro, because, I can't help but wonder also, I'm like, well, as you have this information, as people ask for this certain information, then that starts, like a natural extension to me can start becoming, well, we can create, you want to reach out to these people. Well, we can make that even easier with solutions there. Like, how do you see it evolving?
To be honest, we are always trying to get better at the research and data side of things.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to extend into new features and functionality. So there is like there's a list function in SparkToro where you can like check a bunch of boxes. You'd say like, oh, this podcast, this social influencer, this website, whatever. And then the list that you build, we basically make a request to hunter.io to like grab an email address if they have one. And Hunter.io's like email database is massive. So very frequently your list will then be populated with, hey, here's all the email addresses for all the publications and people that you added to your list.
Yeah.
But we don't do any type of like automated outreach or, hey, let's spam the crap out of them on some social network. Like that's not our.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
We're not into that.
Yeah. It makes sense. Okay. So then with that research piece being core, can you help us understand a little bit more of the difference between the level of research that you're doing and what would happen with some of the SEO related research? Because it sounds like keywords and certain things you could come across here.
Yeah.
There's a relationship, and I'm just trying to piece these together. And, you having had a background in that too, could probably shine a light pretty helpfully for us.
Yeah. So when I left the SEO field, and you guys might know for sure here, I assume you talk to lots of smart people in that field, but my sense was that SEO was really like kind of three things. Well, four things. It was the content on your website. It was technical optimization, making sure that the pages were accessible and, you didn't have errors on them. All the code was readable by a bot. You weren't blocking bots, like all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Three was links, getting lots and lots of links from lots of hopefully relevant places, that pointed to you, lots of relevant, important places.
Yeah.
And having a good sort of acceleration and growth of links over time. And then four was essentially like your performance in the search engine itself, right? It was very important that if someone clicked on you from Google, that they didn't click the back button, right? And that when people saw your result in the search results, they would prefer to click you over most everyone else because they liked your brand better, or they'd heard of you, or they had some positive association with you. Those kinds of optimization stuff, like SparkToro barely touches on them. And my understanding is that links no longer really matter. I think, as I understand it from like the SEO people that I know, links have largely fallen out of favor. And instead, it's a lot like the AI tools now, where what Google cares about is your brand frequently mentioned alongside, relevant words and phrases and topics in important and relevant publications on the internet.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And they look at everything from like, I assume you guys upload this to YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah. So like YouTube transcripts, my understanding is like OpenAI uses that, Perplexity uses that, Claude uses that, and so does Google, of course, right? And so they're looking at the transcript, and they might hear us say real estate agents and Redfin, and go, oh, we should create a slightly stronger connection between real estate related topics and the Redfin brand, and therefore the Redfin website, because Art and Rand mentioned it on this podcast. We're we're a drop in an ocean, but that's the kind of thing that they're looking at, versus does the podcast transcript actually contain a link over to redfin.com that someone could click? I don't think they care about that anymore.
Yeah. Well, what about a keyword aspect of this? Is there a...
I mean, one thing, so SparkToro does an interesting thing with keyword research, like classic SEO keyword research, which I used to do at Moz, help people with, would be, let's use our interior designers example, right? So if you were looking for people who are seeking out an interior designer, they might have, a bunch of words like room design or corporate office interior design, a bunch of those types of words. And if you were to type those into Moz, at least back when I was there, it would show you a bunch of other relevant keywords to interior design that are likely to be used by people seeking that service.
Okay.
If you search for that same, a similar audience in SparkToro, we will show you all the things that those people search for, even if they're not relevant. So you might find, for example, you're like, gosh, why do I see a bunch of searches for house hunters in here? Well, turns out, according to our data, a lot of people who are in the interior design universe watch house hunters. So like that will be in the data set. But it could also be like,
interesting.
Well, this is bizarre. It looks like there's a reasonable number of searches for Dungeons and Dragons. Are these are interior designers, like, do they have an overlap with like the fantasy role-playing game crowd? And maybe that, I don't think that's true, but maybe you would find that in the data. So SparkToro is more, here's all the behaviors and demographics, rather than here's a list of keywords you might want to prioritize in your SEO.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. That makes sense.
Can you kind of walk us through, let's say, if you were an entrepreneur and a founder and starting,
which he's had some experience with.
Oh, this is speaking of role playing,
aspiring one, right? An aspiring one without any experience in the past. What would you do today? How would you approach, starting that business, whether it's B2B, B2C, knowing that you can leverage this data?
Okay, one of the things I think is super valuable that comes from the world of venture capital, which I don't know if you guys know my history, but I have a lot of problems with that field. And I wrote a whole book, I believe, that was described to me by one venture capitalist as, "You'll never raise money in this town again." So I've pissed off a huge number of those people. But I think one of the things that they've done really well is that this idea that they have of founder market fit. And I love this idea because it's taking your particular strengths. So like maybe you are really good at enterprise sales, or maybe you're great at operations and like detail work. Maybe you're fantastic at financing and financial management. Maybe your particular skills, my particular skills lie in marketing, right? So that's like my world. Taking your particular skills and matching them to a market where those skills would help a company stand out beyond its peers and like overperform compared to the rest of the market. That is ideal. That is the core place where I would recommend people start. If Art, you're an aspiring entrepreneur and you wouldn't yet say that you're in the, top sort of 5% of people for some particular skill set, I'd urge you to go broad, like go join some other startups, go like find your passion and interest. The reason I think a lot of people say find your passion is because when you're passionate about something, it's way easier to get good at it. It's way easier to get into that top 5%. And if you hate that thing, I've never heard an entrepreneur be like, well, I became one of the world's leading, oceanographic operations experts, even though I hate everything about water, the ocean, and operations. Nope. Right. Doesn't happen. Right. And so, So I think finding that interest and passion and then pursuing that to the point where you are really at the top of your particular skill set, even if you're not well known for it, and then combining that with a market that needs that skill set. Yeah. That is outstanding. And then when you're doing the, your sort of audience and customer research, you want to find the people who are going to be the most likely early adopters of the unique thing that you're doing and bringing. And that is often a networking process. And again, founder market fit comes into play. Like people talk about whatever, there's these, I hate the tech bros on Twitter who are like, your network is your net worth. Like, I find that kind of stuff just infantilizing crap. But that doesn't mean there's not a kernel of truth to it, which is that if you don't have a group of people that right? Like in our example where Art and I are running our podcasting software company, if we don't know a bunch of podcasters, getting our first like 5 or 10 customers, even knowing what to look for on LinkedIn so we can plug something into SparkToro is just gonna be way too difficult. Right. And so, yeah, that's where I start. And then I tend to tell people when they have to choose marketing channels and tactics to choose the ones at the intersection of 3 things. 1, an area where you have passion and interest. If you hate Instagram, don't do Instagram. If LinkedIn makes you want to claw your eyes out, well, maybe that's not the place for you. If you think that podcasts are interminable, don't start a podcast, right? But like, do pick something you're passionate and interested in, again, because you can get better and better at it. Second is somewhere you can provide unique value. Not value, unique value, right? So like, of all the podcasters who are trying to reach interior designers, none of them are interviewing city planners and talking to the people who really dictate a ton of what they're allowed to build. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help interior designers understand what is possible. I'm going to interview the architects and the planners. I am not going to focus on just interviewing a bunch of interior designers who've got big portfolios like every other podcast. Great. Now you have a unique angle, like you're doing something that creates value that's unique. And then the third thing is choose platforms, publications, channels where your audience actually pays attention. If you look at the data and you're like, I don't think interior designers listen to podcasts. Well, choose something else, right? Choose somewhere they do. If you choose marketing channels and tactics at the center of those 3 things, you will have the best time possible.
Now with that, because that's great advice, I'm curious, as you said early on, figure out what that skill is. Do you think marketers have a special advantage because there's a versatility across various businesses, but actually even more than that, what I would say is that sometimes I feel like that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck is A, there's a level of, again, understanding the market, but B, and maybe I start crossing a little bit into sales here, but still the lead generation component of it, which is, I think, a partnership between sales and marketing. So do you think it gives marketers a huge benefit in entrepreneurship?
I think it depends on the field, to be honest. So what I mean by that is some fields are are perfect matches for like digital marketing and content marketing and social media marketing. Some fields are great matches for traditional forms of like branding and positioning and outdoor and television, radio advertising, like big brand building advertising. And some fields are really more sales and one-to-one sales and network centric. And a thing that I would worry about by saying universally that marketers are good at this is that marketers, myself included, every problem I see looks like a nail and I have a hammer, and the hammer is, oh, well, I'm just going to go do marketing. Right. And it does not solve every problem. Like if your unit economics are bad, marketing is going to hurt you, right? Like you're going to sell too many of your products at a loss and like, that kind of thing. Yeah, if it turns out that the costs of building the team that you need to run the company are not good, like you will do marketing and then realize you've doomed yourself. Yeah. If your market is one-to-one sales centric, right? It's like enterprise SaaS, that kind of stuff. You can do a lot of marketing and find yourself in a hole because you're not good at doing the sales process. This is true for every different skill. Does marketing give a unique advantage? Probably. Most businesses can benefit quite a bit from marketing, just as most can benefit from really good hiring. If you're great at hiring and recruiting, that's a strength almost every business needs. So,
so I'm curious, for you, you mentioned 3 other people in the business now. What are those 3 other people, and were they hired because maybe they co-founded, I don't know what that looks like with you, or was it particular things you hated doing? Like what made those your first hires?
Yeah, great question. So Casey and I started the company. We ran it for, I think, 4 years before Amanda joined.
Okay.
Casey is our engineer, development, like all the processing data, the magic that makes the product work, the software, the website, the CMS, the analytics, the, email integration, APIs, all of that is Casey. And he's a jack of all trades and also extremely fast. Like even before the AI era, Casey was one of the fastest, most reliable programmers I had ever worked with in my career.
Yeah, nice.
And then Amanda joined us as VP of Marketing 3 years ago.
Okay.
And her unique strengths really sit in 2 areas. One is social media marketing and the other is email marketing. Social media marketing, turns out I'm pretty good at it. She's even better. It's also one of our primary channels. And it's one of the only channels left because you guys know, right? Google is sending less and less traffic to websites. I had this non-compete with Moz that I couldn't do SEO stuff, right? And SparkToro is not really in the SEO space. So that was huge for us. And then email marketing has also been, I would say that's our leading channel. And Amanda is a great email newsletter writer and a great email writer. She's very good at like figuring all the ins and outs. For example, she's been running tests for the last couple of years to figure out what time and day works best for our audience when we send them, promotional emails and stuff. Mm-hmm. And has determined after tons of testing, there is no best time. Our audience, they don't care.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's basically, it's so like, the band of improvement from any given time is so negligible that it just doesn't matter. She emailed me about it today. She's like, you know what? Guess what? It doesn't matter.
Ending that testing.
Ending that testing. But whatchamacallit, the email headline, massive. Like we can literally double or triple our deliverability rates, open rates, click-through rates, webinar joining rates by changing the title.
So, okay. There you go. Makes sense. It's interesting.
Can you dive into that a little bit? Because I think, when no matter what type of company you're trying to start, that aspect of marketing, there's so much creativity involved in it, but everybody is kind of saying, well, just copywriting, just learn copywriting. But
Yeah.
it's not just that easy. So what makes her so good? I mean, what and how is that something that somebody can learn, or is that just like, somebody can draw a face of a human really good and most people can't and will never?
So in my experience, some people are born with a predilection for it, right? Like it's just a unique trait where you're better at drawing than I am. I was always a terrible illustrator and artist, but I could take classes. I could learn. I bet in 6 months to a year, I could be better than the average non-trained person. And in 5 years, I could probably be, I don't know, maybe in the top 10% of people who can do it. Probably not the top 10% of artists, right? But you can get there. Similar thing is true with email. I think Amanda has a predilection for it. She's passionate and interested in it, so she's good at it. And she does something that I think is very smart, which is she uses her social media skills, right? Where she sort of pays very close attention to what is working in the social world and leverages those topics, formats, styles, phrasing, interest data, like all of that, intuitively leverages it in the work that she does for email, right? So she knows, hey, the same people who open the emails are the people who follow her on Threads and Blue Sky and LinkedIn and Twitter and whatever. And the conversations that catch their eyes there, they're going to catch your eye in email. And she leans into what's sort of popular and interesting to that crowd. I think that is part of what makes her so effective. And then the other thing is a deep understanding of the audience. Like she personally knows hundreds of people who are on that mailing list. She talks to them on the phone. She meets them up with them at conferences. She chats with them on podcasts. That's a superpower, right? It's like I know my people. And when you know your people, oh man, things just, so much of that messaging and content design becomes easier because you can picture them in your head and say, well, they're not going to care about that. Yeah. Ooh, but if I phrased it this way, I know it's going to hit.
Right. So, Ran, what ultimately drives you? Because you left Moz, you went and started this company, but you also have a few others that you plan on the side. What keeps you like going and deciding I'm going to take this on too and this on too? Like, what is it?
I think I'm not supposed to say guilt and revenge. So my answer will be
perfectly acceptable. It's the best sometimes motivator.
Guilt and revenge.
Okay,
so I don't know why I've always felt there's like a hole inside me that can only be filled by the praise of others, right? Like I'm a people pleaser. And I think one of the weird things about me is I'm just, a little broken inside and feel like I have to give and give back and give more. Which is, it's not the worst motivation, right? Like it works for me. And then I say revenge mostly jokingly, but I was not totally thrilled with the way my first company went. I was sort of pushed out of that business, and I don't agree with the decisions that were made there, and so it wouldn't. There's definitely a part of me, a selfish, stupid, small, petty part of me that would like if some years in the future, my companies did quite well and helped a lot of people, had a lot of customers and had revenue and and my old board of directors looked and went, oh man, maybe we should have listened to that guy.
Right? Bring him back, Steve Jobs style. Yeah, no, it's I appreciate like the honesty around that, because I do think at its core, like what you just mentioned, and I think the fact that you're tapped into that can help a lot. Art and I, we had this podcast where we talked about Patrick David's book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely, because in there he talks about the idea that having these enemies and people who've done it, in history, that can be a huge motivator. And for some, it's as simple as that girl who broke up with me back in whatever it is. But it's the same concept, and to be able to do that. But I also think what you said about the people pleaser and like that side of thing too, because I think it's okay, because sometimes it's just always so interesting to think what drives underneath an entrepreneur. And like, anyway, I appreciate how just honest that was and looking at it. And it's like, even though at the same time you could also be like, now I'm going to go and tell my therapist the same thing, and they're going to say but it's like, that's it. That's the fuel. So I love it.
You guys, I heard someone talk about the fact that when men want to have like real, deep, vulnerable conversations with each other, they can't just get on the phone and have a chat. They have to start a podcast.
That's probably it. Art and I have known each other now for so long. That's exactly. This is it for us.
There's no other way. We need to bare our souls to each other, and like we can't just go out for a beer and do it. So like, we need a public forum. And so fair. Thank you to all of you listening for giving us this chance.
That is awesome.
If you were to go back to when you were in your early 20s, in 1998, more like 2018, we'll say. You're very young. But if you were to go back to where in your early 20s, what advice would you give that Rand?
Oh man, I mean, so much advice. I think one thing. Well, there's lots of personal stuff, but on the professional side, I would say that I wish I had joined other companies before starting my own. Like I dropped out of college in 2001, and I basically, other than working a couple of retail jobs, immediately got into the business that would become Moz. Never worked anywhere else my whole adult life. And I think if I had seen the inside of just a few startups, maybe even one or two, other companies, other software businesses, I think I would have really fast-tracked my knowledge. I would have seen management and leadership stuff. Even if I disagreed with it, hated it, it would have taught me, oh, well, this is good, this is bad. I don't want to do this. I do want to do this. I can see why this was effective. I don't understand these things. Even if I joined a failed business, I think I would have really gotten that knowledge much more quickly than brute forcing it on my own. I regret that quite a bit. That would be probably some of the biggest advice I'd give myself. I also think this is so hard to say, but I don't know if I would tell myself not to raise any venture, because I did learn a tremendous amount through that. I built a great network through it. The first round we raised was really small, relatively speaking, 1.1 million in 2007. And it helped the business like kind of get off the ground and get to an exciting place. The big mistake that I would coach myself not to do is after that, like a year later, maybe 13 months, we were profitable again. And we were growing like a rocket. Like Moz was taking off, because SEO was so huge and Google was growing so big. We were one of the first SEO software providers. We were like a market leader for a decade after that. And we lost the plot mostly because we raised that second round and then a third round after that.
Oh, interesting.
And like, I remember thinking that raising the $18 million round in 2012 or something, after years of trying to fundraise and like all these, probably 100 flights down to the Bay Area, meeting with so many VCs and like trying to convince anybody to fund us. I remember celebrating that day like it was the biggest, best thing that ever happened to me. And I was celebrating my own doom.
Interesting.
It is just wild because the incentives suddenly changed. The business was no longer please customers, make something they want, like help them accomplish their tasks, grow at whatever rate the market sort of dictates, maintain that market leadership possession. It then became, okay, the growth trajectory we're on is like not good enough. How do we not become a market leader in SEO, but a market leader in all digital marketing? So we're going to have to enter all these new spaces and let's buy up a bunch of other companies and like try and combine things, and too much.
Is interesting, going back to when I was asking you about the future of, SparkToro, because you're like, no, we want to do this really, really well. And I get that. And I see how it's also burned in you now in some way. So yeah.
Thank you, therapy, Michael. I really, you know what they say, to be known is to be loved. I feel the love.
It's there. It is there. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I think there's some things that you probably gave us a boost because we want to try ourselves. But just your story and your vulnerability was really nice. So appreciate that. We're going to go check out SparkToro. If anybody watching and listening, you need to check it out because I think I think it's going to help in one way or another. So thank you for building it, and thank you for being with us today. Thank you.
Grant, if anybody else needs to find it other than SparkToro, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I am most active on LinkedIn and Blue Sky.
Okay.
You can just search for Rand Fishkin, and I'm also pretty active on Threads. I publish some of my research. I do a bunch of research about like search and AI and social and content platforms, all that kind of stuff, and usage data that you can also find if you don't use any of those on Twitter and on the SparkToro blog. Certainly a great place to do that. If you're interested in playing a chef in mid-century 1960s Italy and fighting magical boars and bringing your pancetta back to your hilltop village to make your spaghetti alla carbonara, then you could check out Snack Bar Studio, which is making the snack bar at the end of the world. That should be launched in 2027. And if you think Google Alerts is terrible, you can check out alertmouse.com, which is my next business. That one's launching in a few months too.
Dude, that's awesome. I love it. Well, we might have to have you back to talk about those because they both sound fascinating. That first one you especially pushed that pitch on, that was like, whoa. Yeah.
I mean, look, it's just, how has no one made a 1960s Italian cooking game? I don't know.
I tell you, the minute you said that, I'm like, there it is.
Yeah.
Gotta
That's awesome.
Make something people want to talk about.
Yeah. And I guess this is not a bye. This is see you soon, because we definitely want to have you back to talk about these other new businesses. They sound so interesting.
Love it. I look forward to it, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, friend.